Hey, your audio is.
Hello.
Oh, hello, Mike.
We
How are
made it
you?
happen. We
Yeah,
made it happen.
we, we did, but I didn't. If I told you, but I won't, everything that's going on right now, it would explain why I've not been a very good, follower of everything that you've been doing.
What have you been doing?
What's going on is a lot of trouble for the future. I think it has to do with geopolitics, to be totally honest. It has to do with shifting geopolitics, which are reflected in different and in shifting power structures from the perspective of public policy. You know, Documenta started after World War II to prove that the West was free while the East was not. And so that had to do with public policy. So aside from private policy in art, there's public policy, and that's the so-called soft power. So there's things that are changing and different pressures, basically between wanting to return to a kind of conservative idea of Western avant-garde and research, and uh, that's on the one hand, and which gives stability, and it's very Eurocentric. And on the other hand, there's, I guess, the pressures of certain sides and aspects of the global South, which are in antagonism with other aspects and sides of the global South that
What do you
are,
mean?
well, I can't, Mike, I can't. It's just like
Well,
we have to
what parts of
drink.
the global, you're saying certain parts of the global south are in conflict with other parts of the global south.
Yes, yes. I think there's a very big division. Like for example, um, Abu Dhabi and other places are in the process of making peace.
Would you consider Abu Dhabi in the global south or the global north?
Well, that's the point. You hit the nail on the head of the nail. Let's say aspects of a certain world order and other powers or struggles of the global south that were somehow represented in the last documenta are well, there's an attempt to remove them, but all this is my fantasy. You know how I am. You ask me something like what does that painting mean, and I tell you this whole thing, and then you say, I think you're inventing that, Carolyn. So
No, I understand what you're saying. You're basically saying there's a mix of sort of like agendas. There's the like very poor people in the global south who have a certain agenda and certain thing they want to say. Then there's also this whole like religious fucking war, never-ending war that people are fighting over that kind of convolutes that sort of like message getting through. Is that what you're saying?
maybe I don't know what you just said. Anyway, that's one reason. The other reason that, I mean, we're opening a show on March 14th, which is why I'm coming to visit you. I'm so excited. I'm really, really, really interested and so grateful to be able to come and everything.
Well, we're very grateful to have you. I'm very, very excited to have you.
Well, I mean, so it's interesting that for me, coming from the so-called traditional art world, I've been learning so much, and yet I know nothing. But I kind of have the feeling that you're more in the future than people that normally are around me. So I have a feeling that, I mean, that if I can get an understanding, I can also connect it with the past and maybe figure out, where we're going. But point is that I'm very busy with this March 14.
What is the
opening.
theme of the show in March 14th?
Well, it's the saddest show I've ever done in my life. It's very sad.
Okay.
And it's called Artists at a Time of War.
Wait, how far in advance did you decide this?
Well, it's a variation on Espressioni. So as you know, Espressioni was a big show that was supposed to happen in early 2019, before COVID. I mean, in early 2020, it was planned in 2019. And it was one big show about expressionisms in different moments of history in relation to technological advancements in different moments of history. Then with COVID and everything, we lost a lot of money, we lost a lot of audience, we lost tickets, it was like a mess. And I split it up into many fragments. So you were in the one with fractions.
The show up into like a number of different like smaller like sub themes instead of doing like one like. Wait, so the show was actually supposed to be way bigger than what it was? It was very big.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like 3 times the size. But now
You
the
had
last,
that much space?
well, it was a different show, you know. I mean, oh, that's my dog. Sorry.
Oh boy.
That's Vago. No, what I wanted to say was that the last chapter, I just got rid of the word espressioni because I'm sick of it, and it's now called Artists at a Time of War, which is the saddest show I've ever done. And it really works by artists who are in wars. So it starts with Goya and the disasters of war, and it ends with 2 new artworks, one by the Afghan artist that I got out of Kabul thanks to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the army and all that. And he was sort of extracted, and he spent a year now in Europe. He's teaching in Frankfurt now, and he made the most extraordinary piece. He's totally unknown, you know, in the art world in the West. And the other
What
is
is the work? Is it a painting?
well, it's 2 works. I mean, one work is a film that's made in the bomb shelters of Torino, which I'd never seen. And it
So
could
the
be
bomb shelters of there.
of my city, Torino,
Mm.
but nobody's ever seen them since World War II. So all of a sudden, there's this film done in these bomb shelters. They could be anywhere, you know, they could be in Kiev, they could be in New York. So it's very interesting that it's could be anywhere, you know, because you might need bomb shelters in a whole lot of places. And the second piece he made was I had to work with the army again. They were the sponsors of the show, the Italian army, because he wanted to explode a painting. So we made 6 paintings. It's like a room, they're big, like 4 meters by 4 meters. And we went to the army where they test bombs and stuff, and they put all this explosive, and we put the house around it, and he blew up the paintings, and the paint was mixed with the TNT, so they kind of look like wild Jackson Pollocks, but in a
Wait,
way that,
what did he blow up? How much? Like how big was this like explosion?
I mean, it was contained. When they test bombs, they put all these like sandbags on all the sides.
Okay, so it just like blew out the like middle of the painting.
Yeah, but there's no tears. The interesting thing is because of all the sandbags, there's a few tears, but we got rid of the parts that had tears, and we only kept the parts that don't have tears. And it's
Wait, can you show me a picture of it? Do you have like a picture? I
it's
want to see what it looks like very bad. That sounds very cool. That's such a like interesting idea. I'm sure it just I
well,
can
it's really beautiful. Also, I have to say it's beautiful because there's a sort of
sounds very
energy.
cool. It's a cool concept too.
Yeah. So
Wait, there's 6 of them?
no, he did two tests. So there's 6 top, bottom, and 4 sides, but he did it twice, so there's 12 sheets of canvas. But there, you know, there's a history to explosions and fire in art, by the way. For example, Yves Klein, he used,
Oh, wait, he made a box out of these things and then it exploded in the inside of the box and all the box was frames of canvas.
yes, but they weren't connected.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, that's not what I was saying. That's cool.
No, but they weren't connected, and they weren't like a real box. But there's a history of fire and explosions in art. It's not totally the first time. There's a British artist called Cornelia Parker who blew up a tool shed, but she made this really decorative kind of installation of all the pieces in space. It's good artwork, but I don't think it's the same. it's kind of conceptual. And then the earlier pieces in the mid 20th century were Alberto Burri, who used fire to burn plastic, right when plastic was invented. You know,
Mm,
you know the
and
famous
dripped
sentence.
it. What did he
He,
do?
well, he burnt them. He put them on canvas and then burnt them. I'll send you pictures of the plastic. If you look up plastics of Alberto Burri. But the thing is that they had just invented plastic. And you know how in The Graduate it says the future plastic? And basically he was just showing that plastic is nothing but oil, because when you burn it, it kind of looks black and stuff. So it's a post Second World War work. He's in the show, by the way, because Alberto Burri was a prisoner of war. Burri, Alberto, Alberto. He was a prisoner of war. He was an Italian, and he was like, a fascist because he was Italian. But he wasn't really a
Hey.
fascist. He was just a
Oh
normal
yeah,
guy.
I think I've seen this guy's stuff before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was taken prisoner as a doctor, and when he was in a POW camp in Texas, he started painting to pass the time. So he wasn't going to become an artist, but then after the war, he never went back to being a doctor, and I think he couldn't deal with the bodies. And so he just became an abstract artist that made really beautiful things. I've written a book about him in 1996, I think. But anyway, the point is that his first painting was really hard to find. His first painting that he ever made in his life was in the POW camp in Texas. It's called Texas, 1945, and I found it, and so I'm showing that it was hard to find. So there's a ton of stuff in
What
the
is
show.
it? Is it this painting that's like,
An oil field, it's very red.
it's what?
Red colored. It's called Texas, 1945, and his name is Alberto Space Burri.
Okay, yeah, I see it.
Yeah, but that
With
he
like a windmill.
well, well, anyway, it's not a great painting. It's expressionistic, but
What year was this?
1945. He
Hmm.
did it in the spring of 45 when he was still in Texas in this camp near a place called Hereford, Here.
When did he did all this more textural stuff? Is it like what, 60s?
No. He started in 1949. So 1950 are his first burlap bag sacks. But the point that I'm trying to make is just that I'm
That's
kind of,
very cool. Some of these are fucking sweet as shit.
yeah, they're fantastic. He's really great. But I'm just kind of busy with this show and needing to
Oh,
write
that
all the
red and
wall text.
black.
And,
Okay. What does
and
your archive consist of?
it's fantastic. It's 30, 40 years of everything
What
from.
is it though? I don't like. I have no idea what you mean when you say archive. I don't even know what you're like talking about. Like it's like pages of water. Like what is it?
Well, okay, but then can I ask you a question after this one?
Sure.
Okay. Well, it's everything from sketches by an artist that today is really famous on a napkin that was trying to explain something to me. I've kept everything, everything. So I have everything. Letters before the emails with fantastic artists. I have recordings, hundreds and hundreds. Although Hans is very known for doing interviews, I've done interviews that I've never published, or, that sort of like what we do, but I have hundreds, thousands of hours in the last 30 years with tons of artists that have never been transcribed or published or. So there's a lot of that. Then there's plans for exhibitions, sketches. I don't know, Lawrence Wiener drawings for something that we were going to do. So there's a lot of that. Then there's all the drafts of my essays, all my texts, all the versions of my text. I have all my floppy disks from when the first computer.
That's cool.
Like I have everything. I never threw anything out, nothing. So
It's
so
organized into like kind of like, okay, this is this year or some like sort of like way, or is it something you need to like kind of like organize still?
I have to organize, but I also have a huge library, and the books, since my childhood, they also are underlined and they have comments, like I handwrite on my books.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah,
So that's really important. So You know, Harold Zeman, my predecessor, he's dead now. He's been dead for years, but he did Documenta 1972. The Getty acquired his archive for $7 million. So
What?
yeah,
Holy fuck. And
I
he
know.
was like a curator person like you?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my God. That's
Now,
crazy. So
since we
wait, so you
live,
could sell this to them for like a fucking shitload of money, like if you like put it
yeah,
together all good and sort of
but the,
like kind of like
yeah, but you know, I'm not interested in that so much. I mean, I'm not, otherwise I would be running an art fair. I'm not even good at it. So, you know, money, I'm not good at it, but I'm not that interested either. So it's not about so much that as it is that it's saved for the future, you know?
sure, sure,
So,
sure.
because then people can go and study it and read it and,
Like how many
you
people
know,
have done this? How many other curators have done this?
well, maybe I'm the second.
Oh, not that many curators. This is not something
No,
done
usually
super
it's
often.
no, usually you're dead. People are dead, and like you can see them at auction, you know, the papers of Clement Greenberg or something, you know.
Oh, okay, I see.
It's
Oh, and you
called,
can buy like a big like lot of like, oh, here's like a bunch of papers of like all different stuff.
yes, well, if you think about it, Leonardo da Vinci papers sold for quite a lot to what's his
That's
name?
very interesting. It's very interesting that it like kind of like in the end, it's just like here's a bunch of like clutter of stuff they like touched and was like you know,
Tell me about
yeah.
your word to text, I mean, your text to image AI work. I want to,
Uh
what are you,
yeah.
what, because it all started
Wait,
with
can I share my
Gaudi.
screen? Can I share my
Yes,
screen? Oh
yes,
yeah, I can just share. What do you want to see? So what's cool about this is, do you see my screen here?
yes.
What's cool is that instead of like making it like super like just come up with anything, you can feed it an image instead of just text. And then you can just feed it something very simple, like just made out of yarn. And it just takes the thing and just like makes a picture like going on around. And you can like dial it in. So this dial right here, there's all these,
Where's the dial?
see right down here.
Down, down. Oh yeah, I can't see your mouse.
Okay, see me here. You
It's
can't see the
funny.
mouse. You see this denoising string, see this bar?
You're showing me something, but is it on the top or on the bottom?
It's on the like bottom left.
Okay, well, I see those. Yes, I do see your mouse. Yeah,
See the bar?
yeah.
This bar, the lower you put it, watch, when I put it lower, then it does it less. It takes the image and it like, it doesn't, you can kind of see it, it's like blurring the image.
Yes.
So it blurs the image less. So now you can see it's much closer. It's still the same thing, but it's like much closer here. Maybe you could see the like thing versus
But
if I
the
crank
text
this up, if I crank this up now, watch what it does. Now it will do the same thing, but now it's like using its imagination more and like interpreting the picture less.
but
And
what is the text that you said?
the text is up here. It's just literally made out of yarn. That's all I
Uh,
put. Literally
but
just made out
are
of
you
yarn.
telling me that you can add text to image to images that you've made with other programs?
Yeah. So here's like made out of yarn. Here's like even more abstract because I let it go even further and said, you don't have to follow the picture as much, but you can still see. So here's kind of like, you know, in between where it like uses a
But
picture.
the picture that you made, the original picture is the one on the left that I
Yeah.
see.
Yep. And so here
And you,
you can just take like any picture immediately and like drop in another picture. Boop-a-doop.
but that picture, for example, you made it with Cinema 4D and
Yes.
your tools that you normally
Yes.
use. So
Yes.
it's
So
all
like,
made by you.
yes. So this one, these last, well, let me see if I can show you here. Like this one. Ah, dang it,
Yeah.
I don't have all the layers. But you can kind of see a little bit. Like here's the like picture on top. Like see how I kind of erased parts of it?
No,
Like
I don't see anything. I just see one big picture.
you see
So what?
down here, look where my mouse is. Down
Yes,
on the lower right.
yes, I see that.
So there's two like little kind of like layers. One layer, when I turn this on and off, it's like showing you what it looks like with the like stable diffusion layer. This is what it looks like with Stable Diffusion. This is just the raw render. So I just kind of like added a little bit of sort of like detail like that.
But what did you tell Stable Diffusion?
I told Stable Diffusion like this, I probably said like, I don't know, maybe I said Rembrandt or something like that. Something very simple. I didn't describe the picture at all. It just said like, I might have said, I don't know, like just like another artist or something, or like a style, old master painting. Something
Okay,
like that. But
and what
again,
did it
very
change it?
subtle.
But what did it change it to?
It just changed it like a little bit. Like if I do this, like watch, if I just say like take this picture, like say, you know, this picture, and I say Van Gogh, then it will just take this and do it. No, here, let me turn this down a little bit. See how it does,
Oh,
like pretty much just takes it and like makes it in the style of like Van Gogh.
so it's about the style in a way of
So
pictorial
so
style.
that's just one way. Like I tried like a million different sort of like things on it, but it's it's just like taking it and sort of like adding like, okay, very painterly.
Can I ask a question? Why did you stop exploring DALL-E and go to this Stable Diffusion? What's the difference between them?
They're almost entirely the same, but this one I can run. This is running on my computer. This is not like, this is my video card doing it, crunching the numbers on this like right now, completely locally. So I can put anything in here. So I'm not restricted. On those other ones, you can't do anything.
You mean to say that Stable Diffusion is a software you can put on your computer?
Stable Diffusion is open source, completely free software. You can just download from this like worldwide repository of just like people, and everybody's adding shit to it. Everybody's just like, oh, here I made this. It works with this thing. Here I made this thing. So there's all these like extensions. If you look at this, here's all the different
But
here's all the
DALL-E is
different, these are all the different extensions that you can like add to it. Oh, I figured out how to do this crazy whatever thing. This crops this. Oh, this works for like lower RAM GPUs. This works to fucking like.
But I don't see pictures. Why I don't see pictures? I only see, oh, they're adding software, you mean?
This is, I'm showing you all the different like pieces that people made, all of these different pieces of software to work with the software to add
Okay.
different capabilities to it.
That's fantastic.
So this is how this software is progressing like very fast.
But while DALL-E is a kind of a website where you have to put something in and say something, and then it puts
It's a completely closed box. You submit a request to them through their gate. If you don't say what they like if you're just like, again, if I want to see a picture of Mark Zuckerberg sucking whatever, like it's immediately just gonna be like, no, can't do that. Versus I can put anything in here and it's just completely running. And also all the inputs, the other thing that's like very like nice with this is all the outputs that I'm doing immediately just go directly to my computer. So there's no like, I don't have to like download anything. It's just like immediately all this shit, you can see it, boom, right here it is, right on my computer. Like no waiting, no
So
like.
basically, if I were to analyze what the artist is doing, let's say you, I would have to analyze the process of the instructions in the transformations, not really the end image. I mean, it's
I
more.
would say the art in this is I mean it's kind of the end image because it's like there's lots of different ways to make shitty things. Like this stuff is like, this isn't very good. This isn't very this isn't very interesting. Like
Well,
there's shitty things you can get from it. So I think it's like getting it to do exactly what you want. And I think it needs to be like, that's interesting. But the main sort of, I think what you're asking about is the main sort of artwork of getting this is figuring out all of these things. So this is what the program looks like right now. Again, it's going to get like easier. So you have to basically type in all these things. So I have different lists of like prompts that we've also run through other chat GPT AI programs to make them better. So we basically put in a rough thing and then fed it into then and said, take this, but make it a better description. And then AI made it an even more descriptive, better description from that.
You
And
mean
like,
you made a text from a text? You made a better text.
yes,
That's
a better
interesting.
text from used AI to make a better text from text, and then took that AI and fed it into this other AI. And so it's like, this is like what it is. And so you basically say, okay, at frame 0, I want you to like do this. At frame this, do this. And then it can like interpolate between those different sort of like things and like generate video too. So a big thing of what I'm doing is generating video, not just stills. The stills I'm using for the everydays now, just to kind of like sort of like add in little details here and there. But like the video, I think, is actually much more interesting.
Like what? Can I see?
It's generating video right now. I'll show you like a couple of seconds. I'm not going to show you the other stuff. But yeah, so you can see right here, it just like immediately like made.
Does it make you sad to not have fun making all these images by yourself and be giving instructions instead?
No, because it's super exciting, because this is like very like, oh, how can I make it like, because again, it's not because I have a very specific idea in my head. And so it's not just like, oh, whatever, it made whatever, this is cool. It's like most of the things that I look at that it makes, it's like, no, that's not what I want. And so it's, you really have to like keep fucking like, you know, massaging it and sort of like, and there's a million settings here where it's like, okay, this can feed in a fucking video and this will change the like color of it. That alone like makes a massive difference, and all the video will be like that color, which changes like the look of it and how it like things, and like trying to like understand how this thing thinks is actually, there's like, it's fucking insane. And plus it just knows every reference. Like any weird obscure thing, you're like, oh, make it kind of like this. It knows it.
You
Like,
can you add the prompt, make it like Alberto Burri?
yes, we could do something like that. So what do you want it to say?
Make it like Alberto Burri or something like that. But you can't give him the picture.
Oops, did that just, okay. Damn it. We'll see what this does with just that. Oh. So here you can see this. Here's the video. I did 3 seconds of video.
But it doesn't look like Alberto Burri.
No, this is not the Alberto.
Let's
see what it does, just this.
That's what it did? No, it's blurry now.
Actually, this is probably what it did. Alberto Burri painting.
Well, it looks awful, Mike.
Okay.
It just looks like an Ad Reinhardt sort of. No, actually, it kind of doesn't look like Burri. It looks like a piece of earth.
Here, now it's doing a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's doing, it's got the red.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't have the burlap sack.
That's not terrible. So here's a bunch of them that it did.
Well, they don't really look like Alberto Burri, except for the red. But what he has not picked up on is the burlap sack, you know? It's interesting. It's just like sort of vague, abstract expressionism. You know, I wrote Mike Winkelmann into the thing, the program yesterday. I sent you what came out.
What is it?
You know the WhatsApp I sent you?
Uh-huh.
I had typed in Mike Winkelmann.
In what?
In what did you call it? Stable diffusion.
Oh.
As a test, and that's what came out.
It's the thing. Like all these artists being like, it knows me, it's copying me. No, it fucking doesn't know you. Shut the fuck up. So this is Alberto.
It's getting better. It's getting better. It's using the wood, reference to wood. But it's very, very different from Alberto Burri. The most important thing was sewing, you know, sewing the burlap. the body. So I think it has to do with the quality of the images, what you understand on the internet. I mean,
No,
what
it
is it?
has to do with the quality of what you're telling it to do. That's the thing. If you don't, it's not a fucking mind reader. If you say Alberto Burri, that could mean what? Do you want a picture of the person? Do you want like a painting of what he looks like? Do you want some of his painting? And then he's got all different works. I mean, that's like that's where, again, the more specific you tell it, then it will get it. Like if you kept here dialing this in and said, okay, I want blah blah blah, like you could definitely make it, I think, much closer to what you're
So
like.
if I had not written Mike Winkelmann and I had written Everyday Mike Winkelmann, it would have come out better.
No, I think I'm pretty tough because there's a lot of different things like that could mean. And again, it's sort of like, yeah, no, you still need to be much more like descriptive. Like when you say that, I don't even know what you mean. I could think of a million things that you are thinking when you say Mike Winkelmann.
Well, why don't we write Make an Everyday by Mike Winkelmann?
It usually does.
Or
Oh,
Beeple.
you just put Beeple, it definitely knows that a lot more. But it just does all this like purple shit because, again, I've looked at what it's trained on of my images, and it's not that many. It's just a few images.
How do you know what it's trained on? How do you know that?
Because I've looked up the data set. You can search the data set.
And on what basis does it make its data set? How does it make it?
Well, and therein lies the multi-million-dollar question. So they scraped the internet. We'll just go ahead and doop-a-doop. And so they scraped everything. And so that's why Getty is suing them, because Getty's like, wait a second, did you scrape our stuff? Which they definitely did, because a lot of times when you like make video, sometimes Getty watermarks will get like generated or whatever.
Yeah, I saw that.
So like this is the kind of stuff that it's like it's not totally untrue. And if you put up the like sampling steps, then it would sort of like.
But it's interesting because what I noticed in your everydays since you've been doing this, I mean, I only looked at 2 or 3, and what they're doing now with your work is that it seems pacified. I don't know how to explain it, but it's as if the image is pacified. It's it doesn't have some sort of
angst.
Yeah. It's like simpler and smoother and stable, more stable.
Yeah, I think, well, it's not, because it's not, it's just the aesthetics. It's not saying anything. It's not like, oh, wow, that picture just says something. And that's the thing that people are like, this is an aesthetics machine. It's not an art machine. Art is the thing. What are you saying? If you're not saying anything, then you're just making aesthetics. And so it's like, yeah, this is just all aesthetics. And I think it's very interesting, but again, it's sort of like, what are you doing with it? What are the words you're typing into it? That's the art of it. And sort of like, can you get it to sort of like say something and not just be blah pictures of whatever? You know what I mean?
I understand. It's about instructions, the precision of the instruction. It's interesting because it's a little bit the reversal of traditional conceptual art, which was using text as an image. But the reason why Lawrence Weiner, I remember he told me, when I asked him, but why do you use the word wood, like wood in a balance over water? Why do you not paint the picture? And he said to me, who was, one of the founders in the 1960s of conceptual art, he said, because it's not democratic. He said, everybody has a different experience of wood and of a memory of wood or whatever and water. So if I write it, everybody can make their own image in their brains. That doesn't look like me.
Wait, if they write it, yeah, I see what you're saying.
And he said that he wanted to make a visual artwork. He said, I'm not a poet, I'm not a writer. I make visual art, but I want everybody to make their own image in their brains. So I gave them the instruction but it's very abstract. So in
It
a
is
way, what he was
What year was
doing,
that? What year did he do
well,
that?
1966.
Mm.
Um, mm, he died, last year. I'm so sad. Anyway, he was
Who
old.
did that? What's his name?
Lawrence, Lawrence, Weiner, Weiner. He's one of the foremost conceptual artists who revolutionized visual art by using text, words, as images or as instructions. One was Joseph Kosuth, the other was Robert Barry, the other was Lawrence Weiner, and then there's a few more, Douglas Hubler, and one more. And he always told me that that it had to do with a kind of, he was a materialist. He said he really loved materials, but that if he gave the instruction, the text, people could make the image in their brains and it would be really beautiful and always different. So that's why he did it. But in a way, it's like the opposite of what this thing is doing. What you're saying is the opposite. It's like using the text not to make an open, imprecise, and uncertain image that's different for everybody, but to find a kind of correlation that's extremely precise between the text and the image, right?
Well, that's just one way. That's the way I've approached it so far in the very limited time that I've used it. But you could also certainly obviously make something where you just let it do what it's going to do, and I put it in and it did what it did. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be like, okay, I'm going to try and shape this and kind of like keep putting in prompts and try and like direct it to like, what's in my head. You could also just have, I can think of ways to use it in a more sort of like experimental way, where it's like the part of the artwork then is seeing what it makes from this, that it's like, it is very much like this like random machine. It's a snapshot of our best sort of like image generation software right now with XYZ inputs that, I just, whatever it does, I'm going to take that's the artwork. You know what I mean? So there's a bunch of different ways I think you can use it, to me, that are like interesting, because it's like fucking, I don't know, insanely like, it just as we're sitting here, I generated all these Carolines.
Well, they don't look like me at all. None of them.
I know, but it's
They're
still like
horrible.
interesting. It's just, to me, like fascinating that like these people, you look at them and like, to me, you have like an immediate emotional response. These people do not exist. These are literally just fucking made up images that are
But
like,
they all look similar. So I have a feeling that the text to image didn't put together the first name and the last name. So it's a lot of Carolyn.
that's the thing. So to be honest, like, again, if you searched yourself in the database, maybe there's like, because again, it's 5 billion images, but like, it's not, there's maybe like 1 or 2 images of you. So that's not really enough for it to like actually know what you look like.
Take away Carolyn. Let's see what happens if you just leave Christophe Pakerjiev. That will be reducing
It's
it.
also like, there's also ones that are like, see, now it's just like, okay, I see that that's like a certain style of like name. And so it's like, I'm
Yeah,
pretty much
it looks
like
Russian
pictures
or
from that like region. I don't know if that's like a,
yeah, it looks like Bulgaria. Bulgaria, my grandfather. I see what it did. Anyway, this is really interesting. So you think that this is a watershed moment in a way where you suddenly discover this new software and it changes the way you're working?
it's going to change the way everybody's working. It's going to change the way, like, I think it's going to change, eventually it will change the way we like think of media in general. I think there will be a lot more stuff in the future where it's not so much like I'm watching things just the creators made. It's more like you sit down on the couch at night and it's like, I want like a romantic comedy with Adam Sandler and Beyonce, and I want it to be like 45 minutes long, and like it's kind of scary but kind of like funny. Okay. And then it's like the fucking movie starts, and it's just like a thing made exactly for you. And or it's like, oh, I want to play a video game that's like not that hard, but it's like kind of like Mario, but it's also a little bit like Zelda, and like, you know, it's got a bunch of like mushrooms in it, and it's got like robots, and also like you can fly rockets in outer space in it too. Like, and then it just and like makes a fucking game, and it's just like that game is like just a game that it just generated right then, and it's there's this fucking game, and you can save the game, or you can just generate a fucking another game. It's like nothing.
So,
And
so what will the artist do?
the artist will still make stuff, and they'll still use these tools to make things that are like interesting, that it's like, oh, that's the game you made with these tools, well, that's a fucking sweet game. Like, just like anybody else, they'll make things that are more interesting than what the average person can make with these tools. The average
Yeah.
person will be able to make something that's like that they like, but nobody else likes it. The artist will make something that everybody likes. That's what the artist will do. They'll use these same tools, but they'll make it to make things that appeal to a bunch of people, versus people will also have these tools to make things that just like your Beyonce, Adam Sandler 90-minute rom-com with scary elements.
Yeah,
Nobody else like that.
yeah, but art is different from popular culture. So you can make something that a lot of people like, and it's very crappy.
Sure.
So that's not the only criteria.
But if you make something and nobody gives a fuck about it, you can certainly do that. But somebody has to give a fuck about it.
Of course. But here we go to the beginning of the conversation. I mean, the question is if it still makes sense to have this field that we call art, but the prehistoric humans didn't call it art, and it didn't have the same role or function in society, and it didn't have this somehow representing the problems or the reality, a deeper understanding of the world that you're living in, you know. That's kind of what artists do.
But I think they'll still just use these tools to do that.
Anyway, I'm glad you met Jeffrey Deitch.
He was very excited. He was definitely super super pumped. I think we're gonna like do a show or something.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely, and and I think he's doing like a like 30th anniversary of that post-human thing. And so he wanted to like do something with that. But yeah, he's definitely,
I love him. I mean, I like him a lot.
yeah. He's definitely very nice, and it's just great. It's always great hearing from somebody who's like, I don't know, seen, like has more perspective, I think. But is also like interested in like new things, and is not just like,
Yeah.
I don't know, sort of like stuck in a certain era of when they kind of like came up.
No, I agree. He's similar to me to some. I mean, I have a few people that I see more often, but of his generation, and one of them is Achille Bonito-Oliva, the old Italian art critic who was same sort of generation. And I remember having a conversation with him, not with Jeffrey Deitch, about you, but what I share with Achille and what I share, I think, with Jeffrey, although what you call the gatekeeper, in other words, I think Achille or him or me share one thing, which is that there's occasionally a moment where somebody who does something that's not considered art, or that's not art, you have to make an act. There's like an act where you say, I remember asking Achille, but what do we do with, I was explaining this NFT business and the sale, and he didn't know anything about it, and I said, well, what do I do, Achille? Do we let him in? I used we. Do we let him in? I mean, it's like opening a watershed, a huge universe. And he said, yeah, let him in, let him in. So Jeffrey is like that. Jeffrey did that, you know. He let people in occasionally.
Wait, what did he do in like the 80s? Like, I don't know that much about him. Like, he just did like more like shows and stuff.
He was a curator at the beginning. He didn't have a gallery and he wasn't involved in the market, but he understood simulation art, we used to call it postmodernist, but he didn't use the word postmodernist. He used the word simulation art. And there was a moment in the early 80s that he brought together in a series of shows, including Posthuman, where the theory is that suddenly things didn't really exist, but there had been an inversion between things and their symbolic representation, uh, which is different from pop art, but it's in the development of that kind of thinking. So Baudrillard had written these texts about the fact that we lived in a society of simulation, which would mean that goods didn't really exist, but they were substituted by these simulacra of goods. And so the artists were making these, I mean, the artists were people like Ashley Bickerton and Chaim Steinbeck and Jeff Koons and all of those in America. In America, it had more to do actually with objects of consumption because America is consumer society mainly. So you have Andy Warhol and, you know, Campbell Soup. And then in the simulation art period, early 80s, you have the damaged goods. There was a show called Damaged Goods, but I don't think he curated it. I think it was Dan Cameron. But it's that the actual object doesn't exist, but exists the symbol of the object. So in a way, it's like early pre sort of metaverse thinking in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And in Europe, it wasn't so much about the consumer object, but it was about the places and the things that we use as furniture or design or architecture. So it was like that the human had disappeared and there was only left these architectural references to places where humans had been formerly. So you have a whole generation of architectural sculptures like Thomas Schutte and Kikol and Reinhard Mucha. And they're making these sort of, they look like abstract sculptures of a place where a person could have maybe wanted to lean on or something, but there's no person. So it's evoking the absence in a way of the human. That's also what post-human meant. He didn't mean post-human as in today. When people say post-human today, they really mean multi-species coevolution. They mean not only human or more than human, so humans and insects and plants and so on. But at the time, post-human was a world where humans as individual singularities didn't really exist, but only the things and the signs and the symbols of them were left. Does that make sense? Well, anyway, Jeffrey was involved in all of that. And he was
yeah. The people were like, it's not like post-human, like kind of like mixing biology and like technology or whatever. It's meant like humans have like died out and sort of like they're gone or whatever. So like
yes, and their avatars. Yes, and their avatars only exist, or the spaces where they were once exist. He did shows with a collector in Greece called Dakis Ioannou, at a foundation called Desde Foundation, and I remember going to those shows, and I learned a lot from all those artists. Although I mean, we're friends, Jeff Koons and I, but not really. I mean, like I run into him and we say hi, and but I never really got that close to him. I mean, I was close to him when he did the vacuum cleaner pieces, and I wrote about those and so on.
Like the early 80s.
Yeah, vacuum cleaner pieces. And then he did the aqualung pieces. They were fantastic with bronze.
I think it's pretty good. I think
That's
it's
one I would imagine. Anyway, I can't wait to come and see your thing. You must be busy, no?
yeah. Yeah, we're a little busy because that's the thing. We've never like had like an event here, so it's like figuring out how to like invite people, get people here, and like fucking trying to decide what to show, getting all the like artists sort of like submissions and shit. Yeah, there's quite a lot. And then it's like I'm going to the Philippines in like 7 days and fucking, and then I'm going to LA after that, then Park Slope, then fucking right after we're going to like Basel, Hong Kong. Like, yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot of shit going on. But yeah, it's definitely
Um,
all good. It's I think it'll be exciting. I'm excited to finally show people the like space, because we've been purposely not showing anybody like, you know, the experiential space and everything for quite a long time. So it'll be nice to just be able to like have people in the building and not be like, nobody can take pictures of anything. Like,
well, I'm very curious. Do you have a PR person or company? It's you. You're the
no,
PR.
not really. Not really.
You are the
Pretty
person.
much. But like that's the thing. We've got contacts at like, you know, many places. And we've got a bunch of people like shooting footage that night and stuff, and like covering it and stuff. But I don't know, like it's very tough because it's also kind of weird because it's our studio. And I think at first I was like we went back and forth a lot about what to call this space. And at first we were gonna call it the space because like that's what we usually call it. But then it was sort of like, this is really just our studio, and I don't know what the fuck we're doing with this. Like it's an experimental like place where we're like, who the fuck knows what's going on? Like, so then it's sort of like it's, you know, we were like, let's just call it the studio. So then it's like, well, it's a studio opening. That's not like a thing. But it's also like a gallery and like this other, you know, experiential spot, and like actually nobody will see the studio because that part of it's not, you know, open to the public. So it's, I don't know, it's very weird.
So it became Beeple Studios in the plural.
It's just Beeple Studios. Yeah, we were gonna like name it some other shit, but it's like it's a studio. Like I don't like.
But you have it in the plural, studios, like a cinema studio.
We have studios just because there's, I don't know.
It
I think
sounds like cinema, the movie world. Studios, you know, like Paramount Studios.
yeah, I feel like it is like that because there's a bunch of like, I don't know. And there's a bunch of different sort of like zones. It feels like more than one sort of like street. I don't know that part
Well,
of it.
I think it's really good idea because it's independent. I mean, it keeps the idea of the artist as independent, not part of this system, subordinate. You know, William Kentridge in South Africa, he opened a studio to the public some years ago, and it's a kind of workshop space where they produce also performances and things, and it's called the Center for the Less Good Idea. He did that video in front of the Richard Long mud circle on the wall. It was like a kind of charcoal drawing animation where the walls are falling, and there was this. Maybe you missed it. You didn't even see the show.
I don't know if I saw that.
I think you missed it. You would remember. People remember William. It's kind of distinct style. But anyway, well, I didn't really understand much about this revolution with the text to image, but we started. But I think the next thing is I come to you. I come to Charleston. It's unbelievable how the hell I ended up in Charleston. I mean, it's more plausible that I'm going to Dhaka in Bangladesh tomorrow than to go to Charleston, in my experience.
Are you going to Bangladesh tomorrow?
Yeah.
Shit.
But that's like normal. I mean, I always go to the Dhaka Art Summit. I love it when they do that. I learn so much. But Charleston is like off my map. So
It is very interesting.
might be my first trip to Charleston.
No, I think you will like it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Ciao,
get out.
sir. Thank you
Have
so
a good
much.
one. We'll talk
Ciao.
soon.
Ciao, ciao. Ciao, ciao.